All right. Good afternoon. We are here on a rainy Sunday in the afternoon, and I've decided to. Didn't realize getting blinded by the light over here, but anyway, I've decided to go ahead and do a second show today on July 13th, 2025, in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time, guys. And I've got quite a few things here that I bought for bargains, of course, over the last few weeks. Just very short things. And I figured I would talk about some things I picked up at the library and things that I'm reading also on the side as I can. I got several things always going on. It's always great to be able to settle down and be able to actually kind of be able to read for a little bit, right? So before we get going here, whether you are here in the present or in the future, go ahead and like, subscribe, hit that bell so you know when I do these. I'm getting pretty regular again on Sundays, and I've got a few ideas for some actual videos now that I've gotten on a roll with the last two that I've done. That actually I'm kind of very happy with how laid back they were and stuff, right? So anyway, rainy Sundays always kind of remind me of the times I've said it many, many times starting out a lot of these shows. Rains outside when you're a kid. You get nothing better than getting a pile of comic books, jumping on the bed, reading it as you can hear the rain on the roof. And I'm also kind of remembering that I had a little radio and stuff. And there's nothing like hearing some Jackson 5 coming through on the radio or whatever was playing back in the day. And I was hitting around the time, really getting into music on my own with the no BG weekends guaranteed and stuff, which is kind of harsh and cruel because I dig the BGs. I dig the BGs. I dig the Misfits. I dig a lot of it. Very eclectic and things, right? So anyway, thanks for jumping in here. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of show you some of the bargains I got this week. I picked this up and was able to get it for less than what they wanted. Got about $10. It's got some coloring. The white pages are starting to yellow a little bit, but that's fine. But I still have the one I bought when it came out off the rack. A very enjoyable series that was hot when the Disney television show was announced, and then I don't think it was hot after the show came out because it was a horrible show. Thank goodness that as comic book collectors and readers, we have these books to go back to keep them pure. Okay, you know what I mean? So anyway, it is She-Hulk, sensational She-Hulk #1, the John Byrne issues. With this very channel, She-Hulk actually holds a whole other level of being one of my favorite characters, and this being one of my favorite series, at least while John Byrne was on it. But basically, what happened is that the video, you can go back and look at it from like 2010, possibly 2011. But when I was finally getting in and figuring out how to present these things, because in the OG days of the comic book YouTube here, everybody sort of figuring it out, getting their own style and things like that. And I had those potato cameras, you know what I'm saying, back then and everything. But anyway, She-Hulk, my John Byrne She-Hulk video showing off the series that I had was the one where I figured out how to present this stuff. It's the one where everything kind of clicked because I was able to get through a bunch of issues. I was able to talk. Everything just kind of came together. And that was like one of my first videos that really popped back then. How many views does it have right now? I don't know, but back then it was a lot of videos because there's probably like 75 people looking up comic book YouTube at the time. You know what I mean? So, yeah, so it's always great to get this. And when I saw the price on it and was able to talk him down, of course I'm going to get this. It's a great book. The John Byrne issues are fantastic. John Byrne did the first, I think, 7, 8 issues. Left the book due to creative differences. They brought in some people. Steve Gerber ended up getting on there. Brian Hitch did some artwork. This thing kind of flopped and around until Byrne returned with issue 31 and did a fantastic run of books from 31 to 50. And for people that don't know or don't remember or have never seen me talk about She-Hulk, you find out in issue 50, well, from issue 1, there's a Marvel Comics Presents that was sort of a preview, had a little preview story in it. It was showing that She-Hulk was talking to the reader. She breaks the fourth wall, much like she's doing on this cover. And then she does that throughout. She references Marvel's books when she has She-Hulk #2. She's like, hey, these frog aliens were in my cousin's book back in the 60s in Hulk #2 or whatever it was back then. And then the fourth issue was like, we always have like guest stars and a new, returning Golden Age villain and all this stuff going by the formula that was set with Avengers and Fantastic Four, return of a Golden Age character, and the first issue of a villain, and she had Dr. Bong, Return of the Blonde Phantom, and then all the way we get to issue 50, where we find out that this series is actually the comic that you would see if you lived in the Marvel Universe. Okay, this is a comic book in the Marvel Universe. That's why she's breaking the fourth wall, and it's meta. You know what I mean? This is what Marvel does in the Marvel Universe. So this is great stuff. Hey, Jacob, how are you doing? Great to see you. Thanks for popping in there. Right. So yeah, $10. And like I said, that popped issue 50. The last issue, number 60, I think, popped. And then we got 3 or 4 issues where she's supposed to be jump roping naked. I did a video where I open up that book and show you she's not naked and stuff. Some people thought it was funny. Some people thought I was being a wet blanket, whatnot, right? But anyway, that's one thing that I bought. Put that over here. The other thing is that it's, oh my God, I cannot remember the store, but on my birthday several years ago, one of my friends sent me a gift certificate for this, I don't know, I think it's DCBS or something. It's probably on the back of this here as I'm sitting here trying to struggle to remember. I left it upstairs. But anyway, he gave me a gift certificate, and I found this on sale to pre-order. And this is a very special run on Captain America, because I'm saying as a kid with the Stepdad's collection, I'm not saying this was my first Captain America story, but it's definitely the first one I remember reading, getting into and understanding back in the late 70s, right? And it's the Jack Kirby Epic Collection of the Swine from the late 70s. Captain, America is teamed up with the Falcon, and the Red Skull returns and stuff. This is from 76 to 78 is what this collects. These epic collections are now some of my favorite ways to get these books. I still have the Stepdad's books that I read of the Swine. Just for you guys, I want to take it out of the bag and show you the actual comic, I guess, that lives rent-free in my mind. Maybe I should have done that first. But anyway, the Red Skull returns on this. Captain America's in the jungle. Arnim Zola pops back up. Captain America, who created the Jack Kirby, who created Captain America, with Joe Simon, comes in here and just nails it. Action-packed, great Kirby-esque stuff. Oh, man. It's got some annuals in here. And at the end, Roy Thomas and them come in here. Oh, man. After all that talk, I still have quite a few of these. The thing about the Swine, the bad guy in this, the main bad guy that this is about, I always got a kick out of how he looked like John Lennon. So yeah, with the Swine being John Lennon. But yeah, this is one of those books that I kind of try to keep in a stack. Here we go. Just Captain America and Falcon. Captain America 207. I remember this book like the back of my hand. I remember that cover. It's just one of those things when you're a kid, it captures that magic. And then when I actually saw the Swine and saw that they were in the, that Swine, I could like smell him, not only see him, I could feel the sweat on them for being in that jungle with the humidity. The little kid imagination definitely took off with this. And like I said before, as a kid, Jack Kirby art scared me. It was, as you can see, it was blocky. It was just the black lines that he used, the way that he drew faces. In the use of colors in it. And it's basically more of his DC stuff, his OMAC, his Losers, some of the things that popped up there. As a little kid, there was times in order to be able to go to sleep, I would have to flip the comic books over. Oh, what do we got here? The Library 88. Hey, Heller. I still need to re-get John Byrne She-Hulk #1. Got off the stands when it came out. P.S. Love Cap, love Kirby. Yeah, as everyone should. It's great stuff, man. So these next two things I may have already shown. I don't know because they are two trades that are near and dear to my heart. Today I actually found my books. Like I said, over the months, one of the reasons I haven't really been making videos now, amongst other reasons, was sort of getting this room in order, rebagging things, getting short boxes, doing a little bit of a purge. And got to a point where I just kind of laughed because I sort of misplaced all these books, right? So I could show them with this trade. Well, I found them today after this morning's show, right? And I've said it before. I don't want to be a broke record. I realize there's some new people here coming in and everything, but my Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, are the '80s Turtles. They are the original Mirage Studio Turtles. I still remember that feeling when I was like, I don't know what I was, 14, 15 years old. And on a Saturday morning, all of a sudden, I see this commercial for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they're loving pizza. And I'm like, this is bizarre because I had known the Turtles thanks to the advertisements, thanks to where you can order comics from like New England Comics back in the day and Mile High Comics. It was Turtles, Turtles, Turtles. They were super hot by like 86 or 80, 87, going by a brief memory. And then by like, as I've seen, being able to kind of pop open the few books that I have and the few that I've had over the few years, I was able to get my first one around 1990, what I mean, from Mirage Studios. So my Turtles are from like, I know they started in 84, but there's like from 86 to about 92, 93. It ended with the Mirage Studios one. And these books, that was horrible grammar. I heard it as I spoke it. But Volume 4 and Volume 5 of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Ultimate Collection, put out by IDW. This brings in the last great story arc with the prequel story, right? This one is 48 to 55 with a two-part story called Shades of Grey. And then we have the first few chapters of City at War, which was fantastic. And I've said it before, I'm having deja vu here. But I think these are great. This is the art that I like. I like the Eastman layered stuff. They do have someone helping with the story. They do have someone helping with the art, but it has that feel, okay? The dirty New York, that you see in comics and the ninjas. So basically what's happened is at some point, the Turtles finally defeated Shredder once and for all. And then that left a big heaping nature abhors a vacuum. It left a vacuum amongst the criminal underground in New York City. So all of these gangs and the remainder of the foot gangs and everything like that, all of a sudden have a war throughout the city to be the #1 top spot gang to actually replace the foot. And there's a little bit more dilemma there. Like, hey, do we let them fight it out, or do we go out there and we get involved with this because we kind of caused it? Things like that. This one here, number 5, is 56 to 62. And this is it. I have quite a few of the first comics reprints of, like, I don't know, the first 18 issues. I have 4 of those. I have scattered issues where we had like Von Bode come on there and do issue of the Mirage Studios. A lot of independent guest inkers and things like that. I have the Flaming Carrot books over here. I have the Last Ronin issues and things. So I think I have what I want, right, of the Turtles. I'm not saying IDW hasn't done great things. I'm not saying that if you like the little known Image stuff that Eric Larson did when he owned the Turtles there for a little bit, if I understand right, a lot of things going on with the Turtles, man, but I have what I want. I have what I need. It's satisfying. Not saying that I'm not going to run across something or have something recommended to me that'll blow me away, but those are my Turtles. And I got to tell you, the 1990 movie is still perfect to me. I absolutely love that movie. The second one, believe it or not, the Secret of the Slime, or whatever it was called, I can barely remember watching that. The third one, I think, where they traveled in time with the samurai, kind of knew that the turtle phenomenon was kind of coming to the end. But little did I know that we would be sitting here 41 years after the debut of the Turtles, and still be talking about them. And in my mind, they're still popular, and there's still movies being made about them, no matter what you think. They've just shown that they've got that it factor, that X factor you can't put your finger on, where they're such iconic characters, they are able to survive really horrible adaptations, much like Batman and Superman and things like that. All right. Hey, John, how are you? The library, yeah, I like that. Having to turn the comic stack over to get some sleep. I get it. Yeah, yeah, the Kirby stuff. I'm a huge Kirby fan. That's what's ironic. He got me with merit, his getting into the stuff and seeing what the man is all about, right? So the next thing that I purchased and I have not opened, and my friend Charlton66, check him out on Instagram and also his YouTube channel. He, to me, is the pulp master. When it comes to the 1930s to the 1950s pulps, probably even going back to the 20s and things, he is the man. He knows the artist who did the covers. He knows the authors who worked on Doc Savage and The Shadow and The Spider and all those great things. And I think it's fantastic. I've always been aware who they are, right? I had a broad knowledge. That man has a deep knowledge and stuff, right? But he had this book. I ran across it at Ollie's Outlet for a steal, but this is Pulp Power. And this goes through a little bit of I don't want to say the history of what's going on, but this goes through the art of, what are their names? Street and Smith, over 500 covers of pulp goodness. And I'm kind of guessing, as you see, I haven't been able to open it. And Charlton66 and I had a brief conversation going back and forth on Instagram in our messages about what this book was, because it had some really odd people commenting on it. The Rock is in here. Frank Miller is doing Frank Miller, which I can kind of get as on a historian level why he was doing the forward in this. But they have people, what we got here? Who is in here? They had some really weird people in here. Here we go. Jim Lee, Gail Simone, I think, are in here talking about how they were influenced with it. I don't know yet. But anyway, just a great book. I cannot wait to get in here and check out the art. Okay. Doc Savage and them. I am more of a fan of them through Charlton66 actually sent me some of the Doc Savage books from back in the day. I read them. They're fantastic. I totally get it. But I found them through Philip Jose Farmer's Wald Newton books. Things like A Feast of Its Own, I think it's what it's called, where you have thinly veiled versions of Doc Savage and Tarzan. You find out that Jack the Ripper is someone's father, and A Feast Unknown is what it's called. It's a fantastic. It leads into the Mad Goblin. And then there's another one, but it's veiled versions of them. Then you also have the Walt Newton books proper, where we have the autobiography of Doc Savage, but Philip Jose Tarzan Alive. There's all sorts of Philip Jose Farmer books where he has that air of not only was he doing Riverworld and oh my God, the Interior Universe books. I have all these upstairs, man. I've been a fan of Philip Jose Farmer my whole life. I cannot believe I'm one. The stories of Kikaha and the Lords of the Universe and things like that, and Riverworld. All these great things he was doing. He's also being very versatile and able to write these other pulp characters a lot like they were written back in the day. So a little hardback there to read sooner or later. Hopefully we'll get to that. I have a huge backlog of things to read. Hey, twice in one day. That's right, John. Hey, Gretzky, how are you doing? Right? Good to see you. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what I am currently reading just for the fun of it, what I am actively reading, and something that I think I'm really going to start doing on YouTube here, right? So I can't always just kind of go through and read comics. I have responsibilities. I like to take a little time to do my art and draw and things, if I can even call it that, right? Just sort of relax and do things around the house. Plus, it's summer and there's travel and things I want to be doing. And that pesky job gets in the way sometimes, right? So I have to really take my time to read things, and the backlog has grown, right? But even through doing that, I'll always end up kind of backing up and saying, you know what, this is what I feel like reading today, right? So I was able to purchase this slightly water damaged Marvel Super Special, A Return of the Jedi. This is Marvel Super Special number 27. I had this as a kid. I had Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom as a kid. Now, why do I not have them? Because we actually read them till they disintegrated. All right. There was nothing like to seeing that cover having less and less of it back in the day because we kept reading this. Thank goodness that Marvel would take these super special stories when they were licensed properties, at least, and you would get a 2-issue miniseries, 3-issue miniseries, 4-issue miniseries, or whatever it took. They did this with Blade Runner and the Indiana Jones adaptations, Dark Crystal. They gave it, I think, 2 or 3. Labyrinth, they gave it 4, I think. This had 4 of them with new covers and everything, right? So this got me. To me, when it comes to Star Wars, the original trilogy is really all you need. And then it goes into your preference, your age, your tolerance. I'm very forgiving of the prequel series that I was able to take my son to at midnight showings as it was coming out. It was fantastic to practically be living across the road from a theater that I could see from my front porch, at the time, which made it very easy to go to the movies all the time back in the day. But anyway, I still have those 4 comic books, but I also ended up to pull this out. I think Dark Horse did this. No, it says Marvel. Marvel did this. They collected it in hardback once again and recolored it. And this has all the pinups and stuff by Sienkiewicz and the fantastic artwork by Al Williamson and the adaptation of it by Al Williamson. Al Williamson of one of my favorite artists of all time, of EC fame, Flash Gordon fame. He did the Flash Gordon 1980 adaptation of the movie. Bill Sienkiewicz also has artwork in this and pinups. And there's just something about sitting down and reading something that's very familiar. And yes, I have. I sold my VHS collection, I think, a year or 2 ago for $500. But I still have the DVD set from, I don't know, the mid 2000s that a lot of people don't realize are out there, because you get the original trilogy, and as the extras, you got the unedited versions of the Lucasfilms that everybody was screaming and yelling for, and things like that. So I have those on DVD. And of course, Disney Plus. We have Disney Plus here for a little bit. They had a deal where I have a Roku where for 4 months I get it for $2.99 each month. And Murders in the Building's about to come on. I'm getting pumped up for that. It's one of my favorite shows. Great to see everybody, right? So yeah, we read that, and that's just light reading. The other thing that I'm reading as I make my way through this very slowly is Remo Williams, The Destroyer. I probably showed this a couple months ago. This is number 144 of the books. You can get a slight smell of what the book is, the bullet points, if you will, by watching the Remo Williams movie from 1985. It's actually, I remember when it was free here on YouTube. It may still be there, but it is definitely free on some other streaming services. It's one of those movies, and it was like a great attempt. You know what I mean? It still wasn't quite the book, and by any means. They completely left out the part where he's an avatar for Shiva, the Destroyer. Yes, on top of Remo Williams being this book is full of satire on pop culture, on the government and stuff. The main plot is you have the organization Cure that was set up by John F. Kennedy, where it's very few people that actually make up the secret organization of Cure. Because Remo, what it is that sometimes the Constitution gets in the way of making sure that America succeeds. So John Smith, his name John Smith, was appointed the sole person of Cure, and he would hire out 1 or 2 people that stayed with them to take out people secretly that were, enemies of America, a danger to America. And eventually he comes around to hiring Chun, the master of Shinanju. Shinanju is an ancient martial arts that all other martial arts came about, and they would put their services out to kings and queens. Thus, he calls John Smith the Emperor of America, Emperor Smith, because he can't really work for anybody else, even though they are down on their luck. a poor little fishing village named Sinanju, also is what it's called. And they end up getting an American who was a cop, had no family, didn't know who his father was, and everything like that. They framed him for murder, pushed him through court, gave him the electric chair. He wakes up, he's had plastic surgery, he's disappeared from the world, and they start making him the next assassin being trained by Chun, and they go out and have some great adventures, right? So anyway, in the midst of all this, they kind of dabbled in there where he was possessed by Shiva. He's an avatar of Shiva the Destroyer, and we finally have a book we're called Holy Mother where we get to explore that a little bit, and that's what I'm waiting on. It has cults and stuff, and like I said, some of the books are hilarious with their satire and stuff. Sounds like heavy stuff, but it's good stuff, right? And again, that is things that were in the house. I remember when there was the stepdad and his friends, they would all find these paperbacks, be excited when one came out, pass them around to each other. It was Conan and Remo. You know, it was great stuff back then. Nice. Jay Lucian is here. Great to see you guys. All right. The other thing that I'm working on as I make my way through here is another epic collection. And thank goodness that I document these things on YouTube and put them on Instagram, because I don't remember how I got this. I think this was definitely a gift, either a Christmas gift or a birthday gift from my wife. Excuse me. And this is volume 9 that covers 1982 to 83 of the Uncanny X-Men. Uncanny X-Men 154 to 167. I have most of these issues. And as I've said many times before, I dabbled in X-Men. The first X-Men book I ever read was number 3, The Silver Age. So imagine my time when the time when you go from reading that and then everybody's talking about the Phoenix, you know what I mean, the John Byrne, Chris Claremont stuff, right? And I had a friend named John who's older than me. He explained it to me and things like that. But I was very cantankerous. If a book was real popular and I heard people talking about it, I would go the other way. Plus, I had a small allowance, so I always got teen books to begin with. So I had more heroes. But Teen Titans and X-Men, even though I would dabble every now and then with an issue here and there, I kind of stayed away from it. But it wasn't until the Asgardian Wars that I was pulled in, and they got me with Art Adams' art, and Chris Claremont was writing great stuff. With that said, I tell you what, the Brood issues that are in this, the Dave Cockrum art, the ones where they're in space and they're fighting the Brood and really involved with the Shi'ar and all the stuff that we're getting, these Legion, the Imperial Guard, which is a take on the Legion of Superheroes because Dave Cockrum worked on Legion of Superheroes. And I believe Storm and or Nightcrawler, if I remember right, were supposed to be in the Legion of Superheroes. You figure this would be fun, but you can tell they even have a cameo of, they have several Star Wars references. They have a cameo of, how's that warping? Anyway, they have a cameo of Kitty Pryde trying on new clothes through alien technology to where she ends up looking like Darth Vader for a little bit, which set up her looking like the Phoenix at some point. But all these Brood issues and stuff, I tell you what, I'm very underwhelmed. It is hard to believe this is the same Chris Claremont that was with Byrne before. Even though Dave Cockrum and was there at the beginning, Byrne took over. But this is a weird area. This is a weird area, at least with writing with the X-Men. It's kind of hard that they were able to become the hottest book. Somewhere I just recently read that it might have been an exaggeration, but I believe it was by Paul Levitz or something. Probably with some of the deaths we had there. But, they were saying that it didn't matter what kind of sales they were doing at DC, especially with Teen Titans there for a while. Teen Titans was neck and neck. That was the only competition they were actually giving Marvel and the X-Men. But he was actually, I think he was the one trying to say that just about every other book, it was 20 X-Men books for one DC book that was being sold back in the day, talking about direct market stuff and everything. So anyway, it's kind of hard that this was the book that was beating. Now I can actually see with this era, right before Paul Smith came on, that's what I'm leading up to, in the 150s and stuff, I can actually see why George Perez was probably the one pulling in the Teen Titans to make it neck and neck with the X-Men, because this stuff really is not going to blow you away. It really isn't. So I'm familiar with some of these issues sporadically. It's great to be able to sit down and do them. And of course, you got a 2-part story that Bill Sienkiewicz did with an issue of X-Men and an annual dealing with Dracula coming after Storm. That was probably kind of cool. Bill Sienkiewicz was still in his deep Neil Adams phase with a lot of that stuff. But anyway, that's what I'm making my way through. And like I said, it's just not, it's getting to be, some of those issues are definitely a chore, which surprises me. Okay. So what we have here. Yeah, John, those epic collections are fantastic. I think I finished the Incredible Hulk Marvel Essential Collection, all 7 volumes. That's fantastic. I'm on my way with a couple of them. But those epic collections are the best way, I think, to definitely get these. So let me take a minute here as we get more people coming in. I'm not really paying too much attention as I'm talking away. It's kind of nice to be able to get this off my chest so I can move on to other things here. But anyway, if you are here, go ahead and make sure you're subscribed. Hit the thumbs up, leave a comment, share it, let people know that we are here and we are talking about comics. Make sure you check out my live stream from this morning where I talk a little bit about Jim Shooter, and I go into Superman, my thoughts on it. The James Gunn Superman movie I saw yesterday, and it does have spoilers in it. And then I didn't get into the music, though. That was so fantastic in that movie. And then from a couple days ago, I have a video proper where I get into the fact that Superman has always been an immigrant, and they made him a legal immigrant because people were losing their minds thinking that the Superman movie was going to be woke when it wasn't. In my opinion, it was just a ploy, a hot topic to get Superman in the algorithms. You know what I'm saying? It was a marketing ploy. What do we have here? Okay, so we're good there, right? So as you can tell by the title of this, if I keep it, some of the stuff I'm reading has just been the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I wanted to try a few things out, right? This is so spotty. This book here that I got for $10. I bought for $10 at a Books A Million in Kingsport, Tennessee. This collects Marvel 1 through 6 by Alex Ross, Steve Darnell, Kurt Busiek, all sorts of things. But this was a division of a sequel to Marvels by Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross, is what they're saying in here. I don't know. Kurt Busiek also came out with a miniseries called Marvels with an S and stuff, right? And this is an anthology series where Nightmare, the actual villain who exists in our dreams, I think he was a Doctor Strange villain, and he rides an actual horse, his mare. But anyway, he's the protagonist in this, and these are a bunch of anthology stories that go in there. But why am I doing how is Howlerpedia, the dude who will analyze comic books and talk about the literary techniques in them and the symbolism and the history and why this is relevant? What was the author going through at the time, and what was going on in the world at the time of these works and things like this, sitting here like being so spotty with this? No, I'm not losing it. It's that this thing is a chore to read, and I don't think I'm going to end up finishing it. It's not the kind of thing, if you don't like one story, go on to the next. You got some great artwork and stuff. This is just another example of the decline in quality from Marvel. Listen to this dialogue. Ah, there you are. Now, this is Nightmare. Okay, the first page with beautiful artwork. This is the dialogue they came up with, right? Ah, there you are. So much has changed around here, and change is always unsettling, isn't it? This is a villain. This is a metaphysical villain talking to you, okay? No, please, stay where you are. I'll come to you. After all, I have so much I want to show you. All the power I hold and all that I will come to possess. Do you see it? Take a good long look. That's the freaking dialogue in this. And then it's like this fantastic artwork is just ruined by whoever is dialogue in this, right? So yeah, very ugly, right? I'm very curious about this Rob Liefeld Deadpool Youngblood, drawing here that's been painted by Alex Ross apparently and things like that. So I was trying to say it's very hit or miss, but some of the stuff in this is just, it's absolute doodling by a 7-year-old with some of the stuff I'm seeing in here. So when I make my way through it, maybe, I don't know what they're doing here. The Black Widow, 2 pages of this stuff, trying to look like the 40s. It looks like they're trying to be Valiant with some of the stuff. Valiant, Vertigo, Melanie Gibby. I'm all for, I've seen some really how can I say this, experimental artwork in the indies, and the alternative comics of the 80s over the years when I finally got access starting in the 90s and stuff. And some of this stuff, I'm just sort of like, they are really pushing it. But there's one in here that I believe it was like done in actual crayon. I mean, I don't know what they were going for with some of this stuff. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I am going to finish it, but it is definitely not on the priority list anymore, right? So let me bitch about one more book, right? I don't know if anybody's read that Marvel book. So if you know anything about it, let me know. All right, Great Legend is here. Oh, great. Okay, Cayman X is here. Great to see you. Great Legend. Hello, I love Ben and Gray Bruce Hulk behind you. Oh, yeah, Staples in this place, brother. Staples. Make sure you catch up on some of the stuff I've been doing here the last couple days, man. This is just hanging out. This isn't real serious right now, man. Gretzky, who did the music? In 2009, a year or so before I started on YouTube here, I lived in Roanoke, Virginia. Okay. And, you know, I was able to have broadband for the first time, real internet, living in Roanoke, Virginia. And I got to experiment and play around and find some music. And I found a song by, I'm an Iggy Pop fan, as everybody should be at some point in their life. And I found this song by the Teddy Bears featuring Iggy Pop called Punk Rocker. Okay, I'm a punk rocker. Yes, I am. I felt like it was sort of a, I don't know. I don't want to hype it up too much, but it could have been sort of like The Passenger 30 years later, if you know that song. And a sequel, a loose sequel to The Passenger in my head. And it's in several of my playlists. Like if I unprivatized my playlist that I've had on YouTube since 2007 or whenever I joined YouTube and built them up and stuff, Punk Rocker by the Teddy Bears is probably in every one of them, right? It's in that movie. There was talk about music between Lois and Clark in the Superman movie, where Clark has come up with some bands that he thinks are edgy, and Lois is letting him know she's more punk than him. And then they end the movie with Iggy Pop singing Punk Rocker. So I have a Superman movie with Iggy Pop in it. That is cookie cutter made for me. I have not seen something so cookie cutter made for me, at least made it feel like that, since that Venture Brothers episode where we had Iggy Pop and David Bowie fighting on top of a blimp. I'm like, I was like, oh my God, they did it. So anyway, the soundtrack is pretty good, is what I'm getting at. Okay. So these three books here, two are horrible. One's really good, but it's going back to the past. But I do this thing where I hate coming on here, and if I start talking about comic book history like I used to, I really have a hard problem, definitely with at least the last 10 years. I could be more forgiving of DC in the 52. I could tell you all kinds of things about the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. I can touch on the 50s. You catch me on a good day, I can tell you about stuff happening in the 30s and 40s, with the actual history that was going on behind with the creators and things like that, right? And then the quality of books just started going way downhill. A little bit of Joe Quesada, even though he pulled Marvel out of bankruptcy and things like that by bringing in indie artists and indie writers and kind of getting a little fast and loose with the Marvel continuity. And the continuity with Marvel, I can't believe we're a generation away from what Marvel was. Is in the 60s. That's what made Marvel. It could be Kirby, Ditko, and all the great creators and stuff, but it was the fact that this was a shared universe in comics that blew everyone away. Referencing other books, it was an exciting thing to see heroes cross over or heroes fight, or seeing this villain pop up over here when you thought this was in this rogues gallery. You know what I mean? And things like that. That's some of the stuff that made it fascinating. And then when we got to Bendis, where he did Avengers Disassembled, which I think is like 21 years old now, that was it. You know what I mean? That's we've come down this road. But it really got bad in the last 10 years and stuff, I think, in my hand. So every now and then, if I run across a way to do it, to dabble in some of these books and stuff and check them out, I'll see what I can do. But this is a Jason Aaron, Chris Bachalo. I think these are from 2015. I believe this is the first 10 to 12 issues of that volume of Doctor Strange, 1 through whatever. 6 through 10 in Last Days of Magic, right? So I sat down there and I read these, and I found them to be unreadable. They are just dull. They are boring. The big plot is the fact that Doctor Strange is not acting like Doctor Strange. He's walking around with sneakers, doing magic stuff and everything. And it feels like a Vertigo wannabe book from 1993 is what it feels like. Doctor Strange actually ends up at a bar where, to get through the door, he set it up and he's sitting at a table with these other mystical beings. But he ends up hanging out at a bar, and it's sort of like he's trying to write Doctor Strange as John Constantine light. Okay. So anyway, he goes to a bar, and there's Brother Voodoo. There is a shaman from the Alpha Flight. There is a Scarlet Witch sitting there, and there's other mystical beings around this. And I'm sitting here like I've seen this before. But the biggest plot point is that there are creatures popping up in New York that are mystical creatures, some that have never really made it this far to Earth. And the bartender of the bar apparently is this old magician back in the 40s and stuff. And he believes in a karma kind of thing. Anytime he would save a life using magic, he would go home and drown a rabbit to keep the balance in the universe right. And he was like, "Hey, Doc, when was the last time you did that?" And things like that. And he also said that when you see a bunch of birds flying towards you, that means the storm behind them is coming. And there's these people out in the multiverse or the mystical dimensions that are in white suits of armor, and they're destroying magic. They're killing magic. And each sorcerer supreme is trying to warn the other ones across the void and everything, right? Yeah, whatever, you know. And meanwhile, Chris Bacalo is just drawing his heart out. He is absolutely drawing his heart out. Okay. So his artwork is the saving grace for this. This is how I ended up reading it. But basically, there's nothing real stand out about this. It was Vertigo Light, but I could totally get if you don't know anything about Doctor Strange why you think this is so freaking cool. You know, I don't know. I don't know. But like, yeah, and also Magic's in there, and they're pulling in all these characters. I mean, this really felt like a Neil Gaiman Books of Magic sort of wannabe. There was a dash of Alan Moore trying to get in there. So you get into Doctor Strange's head as he's talking and stuff, right? And he says, due to his line of work, you know, he's got ulcers you can't believe. That's why he has Wong. That's why he has a manservant to kind of take care of him. He has nightmares in him. He's infested with mystical parasites just from his line of work. He has nightmares if he sleeps more than 3 hours. He has this wrong with him and that wrong with him. One girl has mind maggots that come to him. Mind maggots have never been on Earth, right? And he's able to absorb them into his head to save her after they're running through his supreme, you know, his sanctum sanctorium, which is now just this chaotic place of loose magical creatures. And if you open doors, you'll go into other dimensions and stuff, right? I mean, it's just very sloppy and very derivative of things that are just what it's Vertigo. And it probably doesn't help that I remember Chris Bacalo doing the Death miniseries and Shade the Changing Man at Vertigo to go on top of that. So anyway, if you want, and they make Doctor Strange cool, right? He's cool. I can't even stand how his mustache is drawn in this. He talks about how he was a surgeon and his hands still shake from the nerve damage. But look, when I do magic, not a thing is shaking there and things like that. So what they've done is by playing around with this idea, it's kind of hard to believe that a magician can fight beings who are destroying um, all the other great sorcerers of the world and are destroying magic, and he can come in and destroy all these monsters and help with people. And you're telling me there's not a spell out there to repair human flesh? Not buying it. He can survive all these mystical things inside of him. Yeah, they try to make him like deep and dirty and things like that, and it's very John Constantine like. It really is at some points, you know. So again, I've tried to find some great Marvel stuff, at least from the 10 years, so I can kind of talk about that a little bit more with the kids and stuff, right? But guys, it's been 21 years since Marvel started going on that steep decline, and there's a whole generation of collectors who have no idea what we're talking about when we say what Marvel was at one point in day. But there is something good that I was able to read and get, and I've reread these things. I had them in very. What have I got? I've got volume 3 and 4 over here. I think there's only 4 volumes of this, right? But from 2002 to about 2011, I think it was DC was putting out the Mad Archives, and they would collect the original Mad magazine from 1952 up, right? And they finally put them in hardback proper because the ZC Comics was getting attacked back by the Senate, the Wortham trials and stuff like that. Their humor stuff ended up surviving, and they had to close down all their horror stuff and crime stuff and everything thanks to the Comic Code Authority. But their satire survived. And I have reprints of this stuff. I have Mad Magazine specials that I'll show you where they would reprint the comic in the beginning of some of these specials. And this is your Wally Woods. This is Jack Davis. This is Will Elder. This stuff is just fantastic. And this series really popped when they did a Superman satire. So I got this at the library. These books are very expensive new, right? And like I said, I have volume 3 and 4 over here. One I have not opened, and after I found out these were out of print. But these things are just fantastic. They satire Tarzan and cowboys. They had the advertisements for all sorts of things. Wait a minute, I'm trying to find it. Here we go. But if you like the movie WALL-E by Pixar, there's no doubt in my mind that people at Pixar were into EC Comics amongst other things. Because if you watch WALL-E, in issue number 1, there's this Wally Wood drawn story called Blobs, where the humans could very well be the humans on the ship with WALL-E that were mesmerized with the screens in front of their face, keeping them occupied as they rolled around and got fat and blubbery and their skeletons declined and stuff, right? So, yeah, all kinds of stuff in here. Superman versus Captain Marvels or whatever, Ragged Net, horror books, the vampires. I have been luckily, I have been able to see this stuff over the years to where, like, some of these, even though I wasn't there in the 50s, things like that. Some of this stuff is very nostalgic for me when I read it. When I think of what the epitome of comics should be, what they look like, I would want up Williamson, Jack Davis, those guys, those clean, great artists and stuff. You know what I mean? All right, JP Fawn is here, right? Great. Other things that I've been reading is getting through this is the Keith Giffen Memorial issue of Back Issue. Very emotional time with a lot of the greats that we've been losing here in the last few years. Neil Adams, George Perez. It's just been wild how we're losing a lot of these guys, right? And then we get back here and we have the Back Issue magazine with, going back to George Perez. It's been a while since he's passed away. Jim Shooter, that I've talked about this morning. But it feels like I waited forever for this. I remember this being announced last year, but this is the 40th anniversary look back on Crisis on Infinite Earths and Back Issue magazine. I've been able to flip through this just to see what's in it. It's fantastic. Now we're going through it. We're taking our time with it, talking about what was going on back then, people that were involved, the comics that were involved in Crisis. It was just a great time to be 12 years old when that was coming out, right? Some other things that I've been reading, the last two, is I pulled out these super specials. The Mad Magazine and the specials were all over the house, right? And I specifically liked the specials when they came out. And I'm going to show you what they did during the 70s, right? So they included bonus material when they would come out, these super specials that pretty much were reprints, and they may have had some new stuff in them, I don't know. But this is what I'm talking about. This is where I get nostalgic with this. This is number 6 that they reprinted the whole comic for free inside the book. So when you go for these super specials, you have to be careful because people would tear them out. So here's the one with Flesh Garden. And you can see, this always killed me even as a kid. I'm like, oh, this is great with the colors. Then we would have the newsprint. And this is what I'm talking about, that nostalgic feeling thanks to the newsprint. EC Comics and their artists, and as many people over the years that came about, such as Neil Adams and stuff like that, their artwork transcended the cheap newsprint that they used, the clay paper of the 60s and this cheap newsprint back in the day. And to save money, like we would get the entire comic, as you could see, they would even use the back page of this pullout, which was just fantastic. And one of these has like the greatest Wally Wood stuff that I've ever seen. I don't know if it's in this one. if I pop into it. But what's really cool about this one is that they went after everybody, right? Politically, uh, entertainment wise, and everything. And a lot of the guys that were working on Mad Magazine themselves were liberals. And this actually has a spot on, I can't believe it's like from 1972. They have a spot on a day in the life of the liberals and stuff, where they actually kind of show their hypocrisy. And that's what was so cool. You say that now, it divides people. Matt interviews a typical liberal family. See, everybody, they even poke funs at themselves. If I tried to go through this, and if I tried to publish something like this, or even write something like this in today's political environment, tell me what would happen. You know what I'm saying? Even they made fun of themselves. Everything was wide open. That's why it was more balanced with satire and stuff like that. Mad from the 70s is probably one of the greatest things. But this Mad Super Special, Mad Super Special, the comics, of course, this is probably, I think this is from 1980 or something. This is my favorite ever, right? This is my favorite issue of Mad magazine ever, because they go after the superheroes, they go after the Flintstones, anything that's a cartoon, anything they'd ever touched on before. There's Sergio Aragonis doing Superman in here, more powerful than the locomotive. And it probably has what I consider Wally Wood's greatest work ever, the Mad Comic Opera, where as you go through this, it's Dick Tracy and anybody that were in the Sunday funnies back in the 50s, going into the 60s and the 30s. It's got Little Orphan Annie, it's got Dagwood and Blondie, it's got Tarzan, and they're singing an opera. Here's Dagwood being having his big scene. So Wally Wood was an absolute genius. I hate that it's black and white. There's Tarzan in it. But as you go through this, you have to identify a lot of the characters in the background, because this thing just gets loaded more and more. The fact that it just blows my mind how Wally Wood was able to do all this. Now, I know it's probably looking like a big mess, but if you've ever been able to read this, you're bound to be able to find it in online. By the time you get to the back page, where the last page, he just loads it up with all sorts of characters there, where you're going to need a guide, because even Stuffy Smith is in there, right? Alley Oop is in there. I mean, it just gets more and more grandiose as we go along and stuff like that. To me, maybe I need to shoot a video of that if I can find a way to film it to where the blacks in the newsprint don't melt into each other on camera. But that is definitely worth looking up when it comes to great artists and great underrated segments in comics and in things like that, and cartoonists and stuff, right? Oh, cool. Everybody's still here. Great. Thanks for hanging in there, right? So, guys, with all that that I've shown you, it's been a pretty good month. It's been a pretty good summer. Things are definitely slowing down. I think there might be one or two more cons this summer I'm going to go to, maybe a few more trips. And so with things slowing down and that wise, and the way that I've completed a lot of my runs, and I've completed a bunch of these trades with the stories I want, thus like the Turtles City at War, I finally get to finish it after over 30 years, which blows my mind. I'm thinking about like slowing down and actually showing comics. Like I've already done one. Oh God, what was it? About a week ago. There's an actual video where I'm just showing a comic and talking about, excuse me, but these are some of the comics I'm thinking about doing, right? Superman number 18, the Mike Mignola, John Byrne story, where Superman is in the middle of a kryptonite fever dream, and he dreams of what would have happened if all the Kryptonians believed Jor-El and the fact that Krypton was going to blow up, and they all come to Earth and they take over the Earth. What would have happened? And this has the same writing team and art team as the World of Krypton. That was the miniseries that was going on at the time. I think about maybe something that's kind of fun, the Batman in the Spirit by Darwin Cook. All right. Or maybe I can do Batman 66 and the Legion of Superheroes by Mike and Laura Allred, right? Something funny. Or we can go back to the 80s and maybe have me go through the book and talk about Doom Patrol and the Suicide Squad, a book that is unique in its own. It had a unique flavor. I've never read anything quite like it with its tone. You know what I mean? And this was the book that James Gunn said that he kind of had with him when he was writing his movie, The Suicide Squad. He kind of took a loose plot from this and stuff, right? That was actually fantastic. Again, one of my favorite issues of Starman that I've talked about over the years, we find out that Jack Knight Starman is responsible for Jor-El finding Earth. There is a theme that goes throughout the entire series of James Robinson's Starman of fathers and sons, and now we get to talk about Superman's father, who Starman will talk about 25 issues later to Superman the son, about how his father was and stuff. Great stuff. And then I mentioned this morning. I dug this out, and I'm like, man, people might want to see this. But this is one of my favorite Jim Shooter stories, outside of all the quantum physics and the secret wars and the three universes he helped build and stuff like that. He has this real simple story that I really like, where this alien has kidnapped the Watcher, and the alien being a betting man, they make a bet that if, on the outcome of this little football game going on in New York, where Spider-Man is playing football with some kids with one hand behind his back, depending on who wins the football game determines if the Watcher gets to live or die. And of course, this guy ends up cheating, empowering some of the kids and stuff, right? Just a little one-issue breather issue between major arcs in the Web of Spider-Man. And then I could talk about this stuff all day. The Legion of Superheroes special from the 80s by Keith Giffen and his crew. Can't remember who he did this with, which is funny. I had the one I had as a kid, and I always pick these up when I run across them in dollar or less bins. And yeah, that. So if you want to see any of those, or you have any suggestions of books you want me to maybe just set up the camera and go through the book, open a little at a time, talk about it, and share it, yeah, I can do that. But those are just some of the things I kind of pulled out today as I was putting things up from the last several days, getting this place straightened up. So guys, thanks for everybody that's popped in here. It's been great to see the Legend and Gretzky and the new guys, and Jay and John and JP and everybody that's popped in here. Thanks for popping in here. Some of you guys, thanks for popping in again. So one more time, make sure that you thumb it up. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit that bell. So you know when we're going to do this. Sometimes I use StreamYard. Sometimes I use YouTube Live. And, sometimes I'm now making videos again and stuff, right? And as always, man, make sure if you're watching this in the future, leave some comments and stuff, man. So everybody have a great evening. Hey, we're getting ready to go back into the work week for you guys that are still working and things like that. We're all in this together. That's the biggest thing we got to remember, man. So, yeah, thanks for popping in. Read your comics. Be excellent to each other. Later, guys.